part of me wanted to delete the message, block her number, pretend she didn't exist. But another part, the one still desperate for answers, refused to rest. By morning, I had made up my mind. I was going to meet her. She chose an open place, an old park at the edge of town. The kind of place where children once played before the swings broke and the grass grew wild. When I arrived, she was already there, sitting on a rusted bench, her eyes red but strangely calm. "Thanks for coming," she said quietly. "Say what you came to say," I replied coldly. She nodded, exhaling shakily. "I know you hate me. You have every right. But before you decide what to do next, you need to know who your husband really is." Hello friends and family, welcome back to part 2 of this story. Before we dive deeper into today's twist, here's a quick recap of what happened in part 1. A kind-hearted billionaire woman treated her maid, Lila, like family. Until one day, she discovered the girl had stolen her money, jewelry, and vanished. What followed was betrayal, humiliation, and heartbreak. As Lila began posting online, exposing her former boss, and turning the story into a full-blown social media scandal. But when the woman finally tracked her down, she uncovered a shocking truth. Lila stole the money not out of greed, but to save her dying brother. Just when forgiveness seemed possible, another exploded. Lila had been having an affair with her madam's husband, and got pregnant. Now, with betrayal cutting deeper than ever, the woman receives a chilling message from Lila. "He's hiding something worse. Meet me tomorrow. Alone." And that's where we pick up. But before we dive deeper into today's story, I have a small but heartfelt request. Please subscribe now. Your support is what keeps this channel and these stories alive. Every time you click that subscribe button, you help us share voices that might never be heard, and stories that deserve to be remembered. In the comments, tell us where you're watching from. We love hearing from every corner of the world. Because together, we're not just telling stories, we're keeping hope alive. Now, let's return to the story. I folded my arms. I already know enough. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "You don't." She pulled out her phone, scrolled for a moment, then handed it to me. On the screen was a video. At first, it looked harmless, Richard in his office, sitting with 2 men I didn't recognize. But then I heard his voice. "Just move the funds quietly. She doesn't check the company accounts. I'll fix the documents later." My pulse quickened. One of the men asked, "And the maid?" Richard leaned back, smirking. "I'll handle her. She knows too much already." My heart stopped. I dropped the phone, my hands trembling. You recorded this?" She nodded, her voice trembling. "He used me, madam. He made me clean his lies, not your house. He's been laundering money through your company for months. When I found out, he tried to silence me. That's why I ran." I stared at her, shaking my head. "You expect me to believe this?" "You don't have to believe me," she said softly. "Just check your company's account. Look at the transactions, the dates. You'll see." Her voice was calm now, almost resigned, like someone who had already accepted her punishment. If she was lying, this was the boldest lie of all. But if she was telling the truth, then the man I defended for 12 years wasn't just unfaithful, he was dangerous. "Why tell me this now?" I asked, my throat dry. "Why not go to the police?" She looked away. "Because they won't listen to someone like me. But they'll listen to you. You're his wife." Her words landed heavy in my chest. Everything, the theft, the affair, the panic, it all twisted together into a darker truth. I whispered, "So you stole to save your brother, and stayed silent to save yourself." Tears welled up in her eyes. "I never wanted to hurt you. I just wanted to survive." But when he realized I still had proof. Her voice broke. "He said he'd finish what he started." As I turned to leave, she reached for my hand. "Be careful," she said softly. "He's more dangerous than you think." Her grip was cold, desperate, and for the first time, I believed her. That night, I drove home in silence. No music. No thoughts. Just the sound of my heart beating too fast. When I stepped inside, the house was dark, eerily quiet. Then, a familiar voice emerged from the shadows. "Richards. You met her, didn't you? I froze where I stood. He was sitting in the dark, his phone glowing faintly in his hand, and on the table beside him, a gun. You met her, didn't you? His voice came from the corner of the room, low, controlled, but laced with something dangerous. I froze, gripping my purse so tightly my knuckles turned white. He stepped into the dim light, a glass of whiskey in one hand, sleeves rolled up, calm but somehow menacing. His eyes, though, told a different story. Something cold. Something sharp. How long have you been standing there? I asked quietly. Long enough, he said. Long enough to know you didn't go where you said you were going. I tried to keep my voice steady. I went for a walk. He smiled faintly, almost mocking. In a park? With her. I stayed silent. The pause spoke louder than any words. He walked closer, deliberate, measured, each step echoing ominously. When he stopped just a few feet away, he tilted his head slightly. What did she tell you? That depends, I said. Should I believe she's lying, or believe you are? For the first time, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Not fear of me, but fear of exposure. He laughed softly, shaking his head. She really got to you, didn't she? You think you're some kind of detective now? Stop pretending, Richard. I saw the video. That stopped him. Silence stretched for a heartbeat. Then he set the whiskey down and looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time. I never wanted you to find out this way, he said quietly. Find out what? That you've been stealing? Using my company to hide money? Or that you were sleeping with her while doing it? His calm cracked. A fist slammed into the wall. The sound reverberated through the room. I did it for us, he shouted. For our future. Do you think the world plays fair? You build a company from scratch, sweat and sacrifice, and in the end, the system takes everything. I just took back what I deserved. I trembled, voice barely above a whisper. You took my trust. That's what you took. He turned away, breathing hard. I can fix this. We can fix this. No one needs to know. I shook my head slowly. It's too late, Richard. I already know everything. He turned sharply, eyes dark as midnight. No, he said, voice dropping to a whisper. You think you do. A step closer. His gaze bore into mine. If you tell anyone, if you go to the police, I will destroy you. Everything you own. Everything you built. Do you understand? My heart pounded, but I met his eyes, voice steady despite the terror. Then you've already destroyed me. He stared long enough to let the weight of that settle. Then, as silently as he appeared, he walked away, leaving the glass shattered on the floor behind him. That night, I locked my bedroom door and for the first time in 12 years, slept with my phone under my pillow, because I finally understood the man I had married. At 2:47 a.m., my phone buzzed. A message from Lila. He knows I told you. He's coming for me. Then, silence. The message on my phone glowed like a warning in the dark. He knows I told you. He's coming for me. Lila. My heart stopped. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone. I jumped out of bed, grabbing my coat and keys. Every instinct screamed at me, go. Now. The streets were empty, the city silent except for the occasional hum of a passing car. My mind raced. Was Richard really coming for her? Or was this some twisted game he had set up to scare me? I drove through narrow alleyways, dodging the shadows, every nerve on fire. My phone buzzed again. They're outside. Don't trust anyone. A chill ran down my spine. Who was they? Richard? Or someone else involved in his schemes? I arrived at Lila's apartment building. The door was ajar. My breath caught in my throat. I pushed it open slowly, calling her name. Lila. No answer. Only the faint echo of my own voice. Then, a whisper. Down here. I followed the voice to the basement. The light flickered, casting long shadows. And there she was, Lila, crouched behind some crates, pale and terrified. Richard? I asked. She shook her head violently. No, not him. Someone else. I don't know who. They've been watching me for days. I ran, but he caught me again. Before I could respond, a figure emerged from the shadows. Tall, silent, dressed entirely in black. I froze. Lila screamed. I grabbed her hand and ran toward the stairwell, but the figure moved faster. Too fast. A hand reached for us. I turned, and for the first time, I saw the cold, merciless face of the man following us, unknown, unrelenting. We bolted out of the basement into the empty streets, hearts pounding. Every corner we turned seemed like a trap. Every shadow felt alive. Somewhere behind us, a motorcycle roared to life. The chase had begun. I glanced back. The figure on the bike was getting closer, and then, in a flash, a black van blocked the street ahead. We were trapped. The message stared back at me like a ghost on my screen. You're next. I read it once, twice, then again, hoping maybe I was imagining it. But it was real. No profile picture, no name, just a number I didn't recognize. My first instinct was to call Richard. Then I stopped myself. What if it was him? What if this was his way of keeping me quiet? I turned off the phone and gripped the steering wheel so tightly my fingers hurt. Rain still tapped against the windshield, soft, almost gentle, but the world outside suddenly felt too dangerous, too dark. For the first time, I didn't feel safe in my own city. Not in my car. Not even in my own skin. I didn't go home that night. Instead, I drove straight to a hotel downtown, the kind with security guards and cameras at every entrance. The receptionist smiled politely when I checked in, but she must have noticed my shaking hands, the wet hair, the fear in my eyes. "Rough night, ma'am?" she asked softly. "You have no idea," I said. In the small hotel room, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my reflection in the mirror. My mascara had run down my cheeks. My hair was a mess. But what struck me most was how tired I looked, not just physically, but deep in my soul. I'd built an empire, handled deals worth millions. Yet somehow, I'd been outsmarted by the two people I trusted most. And one of them was now dead. The next morning, I made a decision. No more crying. No more fear. If Richard thought I'd hide, he was wrong. I called my private investigator Tund, a man who had once helped me trace a blackmailer years ago. He picked up on the first ring. "Madam Acua? Long time. What's wrong?" His voice was calm, professional, the kind of voice that made you feel safe. "I need you to find something for me," I said. "Fast. Name it." "A man. My husband." That caught him off guard. "Your husband?" "Yes. I think he's involved in something dark, maybe even murder. And I have proof." "Then don't say another word on this call," Tund said quickly. "Meet me at my office in 2 hours. Bring everything you have." 2 hours later, I was sitting across from him, a man in his 40s, bald, with tired but sharp eyes. He listened silently as I showed him screenshots, bank statements, and Lila's final messages. When I finished, he leaned back and said, "This is deeper than you think." "How deep?" I asked. He pointed at a line of transactions on one of the papers. "See this? These aren't just hidden funds. They're part of a network, gold trades, fake exports, shell companies. Someone's moving millions offshore." My stomach twisted. "Are you saying Richard is part of that?" Tund didn't answer immediately. He just looked at me and said quietly, "I think Lila found something she wasn't supposed to, and whoever silenced her might not stop there." For a moment, the room went completely still. I stared at him. He stared back. Finally, I whispered, "Then we find them first." That evening, when I returned to the hotel, I noticed something strange. The door to my room, the one I had locked that morning, was slightly open. Inside, the light was on, and on the bed, lay a single gold bangle. My gold bangle. The one Lila had stolen. I froze at the doorway. The air inside the room was still, too still, like whoever had been there had just left. The gold bangle sat perfectly on the white bedsheet, glinting under the warm hotel light. My heart skipped a beat. It was mine. The same one I'd lost weeks ago. The one Lila must have taken before she vanished. So why was it here now? I took a cautious step inside. Nothing looked broken. No drawers open. No bags touched. Only that single piece of gold. My throat tightened as I whispered, "What are you trying to tell me, Lila?" I picked up the bangle carefully. Something about it felt heavier than usual. And then, click. It moved. There was a tiny hinge I had never noticed before. I pressed it gently, and the bangle split open like a hidden case. Inside was a small folded piece of paper. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. It wasn't a letter, it was a list. 3 names, 3 account numbers, and 1 word written in shaky handwriting at the bottom. Proof. My knees went weak. This was what she died for. The reason she ran. The truth that Richard and his people wanted buried. I sank onto the bed, clutching the bangle in my hand like it was her voice from the grave. Then I heard a sound, faint but clear, outside the door. A slow, steady footstep. My body froze. The lights flickered. Someone was out there. I moved quietly, grabbed my phone, and texted Tund. Someone was in my room. I found something. Come fast. Then I killed the lights and stood behind the door, holding my breath. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then a soft knock. 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 I didn't answer. Another pause, then the doorknob turned slightly, testing the lock. That was it. I grabbed my handbag and bolted through the connecting door into the next hallway, barefoot, heart hammering. By the time I reached the hotel lobby, my hands were shaking so badly I dropped my phone. The guard rushed to help, but I gasped, Don't let anyone go up there." When Tund arrived minutes later, I showed him the bangle, the paper, and the list of names. He stared at it for a long moment, eyes wide. Then he said, "Madam, this isn't just money laundering. These are high-level accounts. I know 2 of these names. One's a politician. The other..." He stopped. "The other what?" I demanded. He looked up at me slowly. "The other is your husband's business partner." Something inside me broke. All this time, I thought I was fighting Richard alone. But it wasn't just him. It was a network. A chain of powerful people, rich, connected, untouchable. And now they knew I had the evidence. Tund slipped the paper into an envelope and said, "We'll need to move fast. You can't go home tonight." I nodded. Then my phone buzzed again. A new message. No name. No number. Too late. We already know where you are. Tund didn't waste a second. "Get up," he said. His voice was low and steady, but his eyes gave him away, sharp with panic. "Now." He grabbed the envelope, stuffed it inside his jacket, and pulled me toward the back exit. The hotel staff stared as we rushed through the dim corridor, past the kitchen, past the laundry carts. Somewhere above us, I heard running feet, too many of them. My breath came in short gasps. "Tund, what's happening? How do they already?" He cut me off. "They were watching you. You said you used your phone, right? They traced it. We can't stay here." We burst out into the cold night air behind the hotel. The city felt different now. The streetlights flickered, shadows shifted where no one stood. I could smell the rain, the exhaust, the danger. Tund's black SUV was parked near the fence. We jumped in, and he drove off in one sharp motion, tires screeching. "Where are we going?" I asked, gripping the seat. "Someplace quiet," he said. "Someplace they won't look." For a long while, neither of us spoke. The road stretched endlessly ahead, the hum of the engine the only sound between us. I kept staring out the window, watching the city shrink behind us like a dying memory. Finally, I whispered, "She died because of me, didn't she? Lila." Tund glanced at me but didn't answer right away. "She died because she tried to do the right thing." I looked down at my trembling hands. "She was more than just a maid, wasn't she?" He sighed. "I didn't want to tell you until I was sure. But yes, Lila wasn't who she said she was. She was working undercover, trying to expose the same people you're now up against." I turned sharply toward him. "Undercover? For who?" "For the Financial Crimes Bureau," he said. "They suspected your husband's company was being used to move black money overseas. She was sent to gather proof, quietly. But when she got too close, someone found out." My chest tightened. And Richard. He was one of their main conduits, Tund said grimly. He might not have killed her himself, but he definitely knew who did. The words hit me like a blow. I pressed my palms against my eyes and whispered, she risked everything. Tund's tone softened. She trusted you. That's why she left that clue in your bangle. We drove for hours until the city lights faded completely. At dawn, we reached an old guest house on the edge of a small fishing town. Salt filled the air, and the sea whispered somewhere beyond the horizon. Tund parked beside the building. We'll stay here for a bit. Change SIM cards. Send the file to someone I trust. I nodded, exhausted. The moment I sat on the bed, my body gave up. Sleep pulled me under like a wave. When I woke, it was evening again. Tund sat by the window, laptop open, his face lit by its blue glow. Any luck? I asked. He didn't answer immediately. Then he turned to me slowly and said, someone just transferred $500,000 into your account. I blinked. What? He showed me the screen. From one of the same accounts on that paper. My stomach dropped. Why would they send me money? He closed the laptop gently and said, it's not money. It's a message. I frowned. What message? He looked me dead in the eyes. They want you to shut up, or they'll pay you to disappear. Before I could reply, the power went out. The room plunged into darkness. Then came a knock at the door. Knock, knock, knock. And a voice. Madam Acua, you shouldn't have run. The knock came again, louder this time. My heart slammed against my ribs as if trying to break free. Who is it? I called, my voice trembling. No answer. Just the echo of the knock on thin wood. Tund stood rigid behind me, his hand resting on his gun. Don't move, he whispered. Let me handle this. Slowly, he reached for the door handle. The lock clicked. A shadow fell across the threshold. A man stepped in, tall in a dark suit, his face half hidden in the dim light. His eyes gleamed cold. Tund, he said, voice smooth and dangerous. Step aside. Tund didn't move. I don't think so. The man smiled, no warmth in it, only a predator's patience. Then he lunged, sudden and fast, faster than I could follow. Tund tried to grab him, but the man was stronger than he looked. They struggled. A shot cracked the room. I screamed. In that instant, hands grappled me, dragging me away from the chaos. I fought, kicked, cursed. It did no good. They overpowered me. A canvas bag was thrown over my head. Darkness swallowed everything. Panic, cold air, the world tilting as I was shoved into a car. When the bag was finally pulled away, I found myself in a room I didn't recognize. Stark white walls, a single high barred window. Clinical. Isolated. I was alone. Alone, except for a single envelope on the metal table in front of me. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a photograph, Lila smiling, but bound and bruised. Beneath it, a neat handwritten note. You don't know everything yet. Make the wrong move, and she dies. Make the right move, and you might survive. Something about the picture felt wrong. Too clean, too posed, as if someone wanted me to stop asking questions. My stomach dropped. My mind scrambled for a plan. A voice spoke from behind me, slow, calm, terrifying. Acua, it seems you've inherited quite the problem. I froze. The man stepped into the light. My blood ran cold. It was Richard. And now, he said softly, you'll see why some betrayals hurt more than death. Panic flared anew when I realized Tund wasn't there. If he'd been taken, or worse, then I was truly alone. I sank into the cold metal chair, my hands still trembling. The photograph of Lila burned into my mind, alive, but barely. Richard circled the room like a lion stalking its prey. Calm, confident, untouchable. Do you know why I brought you here, Acua? He asked, stopping just behind my chair. Because you've been too curious, too clever, and some lessons must be learned the hard way. I tried to speak, but the words caught in my throat. My mind raced through every possibility, every plan, every escape route, every ally I thought I had. All gone in one breath of fear. You're not going anywhere. And neither is she, Richard said, pointing at the photograph. Unless you make a choice. And not the kind you like. Something about the photo tugged at me, the lighting too even, the bruises almost painted on, as if someone wanted the image to look tragic rather than true. I felt rage rise inside me. For the first time, fear didn't control me. Not when Lila's life hung in the balance. Who are you really working for? I demanded. Tell me, and maybe, just maybe, I can make it worth your while. Richard chuckled, low, cold, deliberate. Acua, he said, pacing slowly. Always thinking she's in control. That's your problem. You never see the real power. And yet, he leaned forward slightly. That might be your only chance. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a slim folder. Without a word, he slid it across the table toward me. My fingers hesitated before touching it. The file felt heavier than paper should. I opened it. Photos. Documents. Transfers. Bank statements. And in the center, Tun's name. My breath caught. His face stared back at me from the first page. Every tip, every warning, every escape, it was all there. Mapped. Controlled. Bought. Tund had been working for Richard all along. The room tilted. My stomach churned. I sat back stunned, as betrayal twisted through me like a knife. Richard watched my face carefully, his smile sharp as broken glass. And now, Acua, he said softly, you'll play my game. Because the only way to save her is to trust the one who betrayed you most. I couldn't breathe. My pulse roared in my ears. Every instinct screamed, every nerve burned. Tund. The realization froze me from the inside out. He wasn't my ally. He never was. And now I was trapped, caught between two men who had played me from the start. When the guards dragged me out of that room, my mind was already racing ahead of them. If Richard was telling the truth about Tund, I was surrounded by enemies. If he was lying, I was walking straight into another one of his traps. Either way, I had to play along. They shoved me into the back seat of a black van. Through the tinted glass the sea glinted in the distance, small boats rocking gently against the waves. The air smelled of salt and diesel. I glanced at the driver. Broad shoulders. Face hidden under a cap. When he spoke, I froze. Don't panic, madam. It's me. It was Tund. He didn't turn his head or smile. He just kept driving. My heart hammered. You're working for him, I whispered. You set me up. He shook his head slightly. Not everything you saw in that file is true. Listen before you decide. Why should I? Because, he said quietly, if I hadn't pretended to be on their side, you'd already be dead. We rode in silence for nearly an hour. Finally, the road ended at an old fishing dock. He parked and turned to face me. Richard's operation isn't just local, he said. There's an offshore hub, Dubai, Singapore, Nairobi. Lila discovered the routing codes. That list in your bangle? It was only half of it. My throat went dry. And the other half? She hid it, Tun said. Somewhere only you can find it. I frowned. He nodded. Before she died, she sent an encrypted message to my server. It said, "Tell Madame Acua to look where love once began." I stared at him. What does that even mean? Where did you meet Richard for the first time? The answer hit me immediately. The old mansion. My mother's estate. Tun's jaw tightened. Then that's where the Rayol file is. Before I could speak, his phone buzzed. One look at the screen drained the color from his face. They found us. I turned toward the road. 3 black SUVs were kicking up dust on the horizon. Tun jumped out, grabbed my arm. Run. There's a path behind the dock. Go. Gunfire cracked in the distance. I ran barefoot across the wet sand, wind whipping my hair, the sea roaring in my ears. Engines revved behind us. Tires screamed. We reached a small shack by the water. Tun shoved me inside. "I'll hold them off," he said. "No, you can't." But he was already outside, firing. Through the broken slats, I watched him drop 2 attackers before a bullet hit his shoulder. He stumbled, turned toward the shack, shouting something I could barely make out. Find the file, end this, trust no one. Then the door burst open, and hands seized me. As they dragged me away, I caught one last image. Tund on his knees, blood soaking his shirt, still trying to raise his gun. Then everything went black. When I woke, my hands were tied. My head throbbed, my throat dry as sand. The room was dim, the air heavy with dust and wood polish. It took a few blinks for my eyes to adjust to the light filtering through cracked curtains. The place slowly came into focus. Faded rose wallpaper, a chandelier with a single flickering bulb, a grand mirror with a chipped frame. This was my mother's old mansion, the same house where I had first met Richard, 15 years ago. The same house where everything began. I pulled at the ropes until my wrists burned. Footsteps creaked in the hall. The door opened, and there he was. Richard. Calm. Impeccably dressed. A devil in expensive taste. He smiled as if nothing were wrong. "Welcome home, Acua," he said softly. "I see you found your way back to where it all started." I glared at him. "What do you want?" He sighed. "The rest of the files. You have them, don't you?" "I don't even know what you're talking about," I managed. He crouched so his face was level with mine. "You always were a terrible liar." Standing, he paced the room slowly. "I built you, Acua. Every luxury, the mansion, the cars, the respect, it all came from me. But you grew teeth. Started asking questions. Forgetting your place." "I didn't forget anything," I spat. "I just finally saw the truth." He chuckled. "The truth." Leaning closer, he added, "The truth is you were useful. A name, a front, a distraction. You thought love made you special. It just made you blind." My chest tightened. "And Lila? Did she die for being blind too?" For the first time his expression cracked, just a little. "You wouldn't understand," he said. "Try me," I said. He stared at me for a long moment, then quietly, "Lila wasn't supposed to die. She was supposed to disappear. She got greedy. Or maybe she got a conscience," I shot back. His eyes darkened. "Be careful what you say next." Boots echoed in the hallway. A guard entered, one of the men who had dragged me earlier. "Sir," he reported, "we searched the dock. No sign of Tun's body. He's gone." Richard's jaw tightened. "Find him. Now." The guard nodded and left. Richard turned back to me. "Seems your friend's luck hasn't run out yet. Pity yours just did." He produced a small black pistol and leveled it at my head. My heart stopped. "You could have walked away, Acua, but you had to dig where you shouldn't." His finger tightened on the trigger. Then bang. The window behind him exploded inward. Richard staggered, clutching his arm. Outside, an engine roared and another shot cracked through the night. I ducked behind a chair as bullets shredded the curtains. "Get her out of here." Richard barked. But it was too late. The front doors burst open, and Tund stood in the doorway. Bloodied and limping, eyes blazing with fury, he stepped in holding a shotgun. "Step away from her," he growled. "This ends tonight." Then the mansion began to shook with gunfire. Glass shattered, wood splintered, echoes bouncing through the grand hallway like rolling thunder. Tund fired again, once, twice, each shot forcing Richard's men to dive behind pillars and furniture. He moved with a fury only desperation can summon, wounded but unstoppable. "Acua," he shouted. "Get down." I dove behind an overturned table as bullets whizzed past. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it might tear through my chest. Richard crouched behind the marble staircase, pressing a hand to his bleeding arm, barking orders. "Take them both alive. I want her breathing." Tund reloaded quickly. "That won't happen," he muttered, eyes blazing. For a moment, time slowed. I saw Richard snatch the pistol from the floor. Tund noticed too, but not fast enough. Then bang. Tund stumbled, clutching his chest. "No." I screamed, rushing to him. He hit the floor hard, blood soaking his shirt. Richard rose slowly, gun in hand, breathing ragged. He smiled, cold and triumphant. "I told you, Acua, you can't win against me." But Tund, gasping, whispered, "Look behind you." Richard turned, Too late. The grand mirror shattered. From the shadows, a figure emerged. And it was Lila, alive and still breathing, covered in dust and bruises, her eyes hard as steel. "I was done hiding," she said. "You took everything from me, Richard. My name, my peace, my life, but you won't take her." Before he could react, Lila raised her gun and fired. Richard dropped to his knees, eyes wide with disbelief. Blood spread across his chest like a dark rose blooming. He tried to speak, but only a rasp escaped before he fell silent. I stared at Lila, trembling. "You're still alive?" She nodded, weak but fierce. "Barely. They buried me alive, madam. I crawled out and disappeared. I had to wait, until he trusted everyone but me." Tears streamed down my face. "Oh God, Lila." She glanced at Tund, fading fast. "Help him," she whispered. I pressed my hands to his wound, shaking. "Stay with me, please." Tund smiled faintly. "Told you. I'd keep you safe." Then his eyes closed. The house fell silent, save for the faint hum of the broken chandelier swinging overhead. Smoke drifted through the room. Lila slid down the wall, exhaustion etched across her bruised face. "It's over," she murmured. "Finally, over." But then, even as relief flooded me, a new dread emerged. Richard's phone buzzed on the floor. A message lit up the screen. "Phase 2 initiated. Transfer complete." I stared at the words, my heart hammering. Whatever Richard had started wasn't finished yet. And the buzzing phone wouldn't stop. It vibrated against the marble floor like a heartbeat, the message glowing ominously on the cracked screen. "Phase 2 initiated. Transfer complete." I picked it up with trembling hands. The sender's name was hidden, just a string of encrypted numbers. Lila leaned closer, eyes narrowing. "That's not a normal contact. It's an internal code. Whoever sent this still works inside his network." My voice cracked. "You mean, this isn't over?" She shook her head slowly. "No. Richard was just the face. The real boss. He never shows himself." The house reeked of smoke and gunpowder. Tund's blood was still warm on the tiles. My stomach churned from fear, grief, and exhaustion. Lila pulled a small black drive from her pocket and connected it to the phone. "Before they buried me, I stole something from Richard's private server," she explained. "If that text came from his people, we can trace it." Numbers began to scroll across the screen, IP addresses, transaction codes, foreign locations. Then one blinked and froze red. "Gulf Financial Holdings, Dubai." I froze. "That's where he sent all the gold and money, isn't it?" Lila nodded grimly. "Exactly. Someone just completed the final transfer. If we don't stop it, everything he stole, your money, the jewels, the fake accounts, will vanish forever." I knelt beside Tund's body, brushing his hair back gently. "He died for this," I whispered. "For the truth." Lila placed a hand on my shoulder. "Then we make it count." She helped me to my feet. "We need to leave before Richard's men regroup. Grab whatever you can." As we turned toward the hallway, a faint sound cut through the tension, the old landline near the window ringing. Slow. Deliberate. Lila froze. "Don't answer that," she whispered. But I needed to know. I picked up the receiver, my hand shaking. "Hello?" A calm male voice, foreign and smooth, spoke. "Congratulations, Madam Acua. You survived, Richard. Not many do." My blood ran cold. Who is this? The one who made Richard rich and disposable. You should have stayed quiet. Then the line went dead. Lila stared at me. Who was it? I swallowed hard. Someone worse. She glanced toward the doorway. "Then we move now." Outside, rain fell in heavy sheets. We passed through the mansion gates, leaving behind the corpses, the smoke, and the ghosts that had haunted those walls. But as we reached the car parked by the road, a black drone hovered silently above us. Its red light blinked as it tilted, scanning our faces. Then it disappeared into the night. Lila whispered, her voice tight, "They found us again." And for the first time, I realized, Richard's death wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of the hunt.